Auditors, consultants, and other security professionals have to do this one manual boring task, which is preparing security audits. So this is where they have to read hundreds of pages of the company's internal policies and procedures just to make sure they meet their regulatory known standards like the IC 27001. So I built an AI powered compliance assistant where it automatically does it for you and it does it quickly. So it basically automatically reads the company's policies and finds the compliance gaps, recommendations, and generates ready to use audit report. So how does it work? First, you upload the set of documents, now be it PDFs or the docs file, and then you put in your set of compliance questions into a CSV file that's going to be called control.csv. And then once you run the program, it's then going to give you back the coverage, risk gaps, and recommendations. So behind the scenes, we're using something called RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is used to break down the documents into chunks, convert those chunks into embedding vectors. Now, embedding vectors is really important here. It's basically the result of the AI being able to understand the meaning behind the text instead of just memorizing it word for word. So even if we use different wordings when asking our question, it can still be able to pull out the relevant text to serve as evidence because of the fact that it has understood the text. Anyways, these embedded vectors are basically represented as a bunch of numbers that's basically meant for the AI. In our case, we're using the OpenAI GPT-4o as the AI model that we're using. It then basically stores these embedded chunks into this local database that's held within our computer. It's called a local Chroma database. And then when asked a question, depending on the type of question it is asked, it'll pull out the relevant text to serve as evidence. Now, without a RAG, an AI model like our ChatGPT-4o will just be relying on its own memory and not your documents. It's basically asking ChatGPT to solve your homework without knowing what the homework is. Anyways, so this is our code. We have a few files here. I'm going to go over it very quickly. Interface.py is basically using Streamlit as our UI. Loaders.py is basically responsible for scanning the text from the PDF or document, cleaning it by removing any odd weird spaces, and then it just splits it into chunks for vector storage. RAG client basically ends up reading the API key and also contains the embedding models, which converts the text into embedding vectors. As I said, it's basically like a bunch of numbers that capture meaning behind the text. So basically, vector store stores the chunks of the data that was split by loaders.py, and then the embedded vectors that was done by ragclient.py into the local Chroma database. Our evaluator.py, it's basically the judge, where it looks at the control question, grabs the most relevant text to serve as evidence, and then asks AI, which is our ChatGPT-4o model, to rank and score it and give a clean result. So here we have our program. We're gonna try running it right now. So first we're gonna input our files. In this case, there are a bunch of access control files that I have found online, and I'm just gonna paste this here. Okay, and then we're gonna put our questions into a CSV file called controls.csv. In here I have all of my relevant questions. So I have the ID numbers, and these are just like random numbers I came up with, the control type questions, and what the questions are. So it's all in a CSV file. The reason I did it this way is so that we don't have to always end up hard coding the questions into the file base, like into the code file space. So yeah, so then it's gonna, when we run scoring, it's gonna run those questions against the setup and pick out the relevant documents and text that's necessary for answering our questions. As you can see, it has done the scoring. So we have the control ID number that we have put, the control topics, how strong the evidence is, so like the coverage, whether it's covered fully or partially covered, and then what gaps there are. And this mainly is going to be within the partially covered section, what gaps there may be, what risks there are, the recommendations there could be, and yeah, how confident the AI is about its judgment. And we can download this in a CSV file, compliance underscore CS results.csv, and then it'll have everything in a CSV file like this. So yeah, I hope this project is something that I found really interesting and helpful. So yeah, alright then, bye.